In a world where two Canadians were hunting for UFOs and disclosure, two men would rise from the ashes, Rob Freeman and Mark McNabb. Welcome back to UAP Studies Podcast, everybody. That was my trailer for their movie.
Wow, that was fantastic.
Autobots, roll out. Yeah, I'm working on it. Michael, we got a treat today. The boys are back in town. We have Rob Freeman and Mark McNabb joining us on UAP Studies Podcast. We are talking about, of course, the launch of their new book. And I was just mentioning before we started the podcast with Mark how proud I am of you guys. And, when I first started the podcast, it wasn't huge. And you came on no problem, like a complete nobody in the field. And you guys didn't even bat an eye. But the friendship, from a distance, but it's a long distance friendship that I have with you guys is very near and dear to my heart. Not only you guys Canadian, but you're passionate about what you do enough to the point where you travel the frickin' world in the remote places. We were talking last time, the dangerous situations you guys end up in, because you're not supposed to be there. It's crazy because you guys are actually doing the work that I wish I was doing, and many other people wish they were doing. But the toilet experts, they wish they would do what you guys do, and get the data that you get and spend the money that you guys spend on doing this. This is not a cheap venture, folks, by any means. This in ufology, there's no money. You're not going to get funded. This is all out of pocket expenses for everybody. This is why this subject is so hard on the public, because we don't get the funding that the secret organizations get to do their research.
So for me, even as a boy, I loved to go on little adventures. What boy doesn't? And so for me, this was kind of bringing out the young boy in me who would go out with Mark and we'd go on these adventures and these expeditions. And, he's never proved me wrong. Right from that day, it's nonstop. And the things that we have experienced and discovered, oh man, it's kind of like I would never want to go back. It's like we've been living under a rock all our life. When you go out there and experience this phenomena for yourself, it's one thing hearing the stories and it's like, well, maybe that's true, maybe it is an interesting story, whatever, right? But you truly have to experience these things for yourself. And it's one thing seeing lights in the sky, but that only gets you into this rabbit hole or this phenomena. It's all the other crazy things that happen around you, ground effects, this, we call it cool high strangeness. And there's no end to the stories we have around that of impossible things that have happened, including there's bilocation, there's split timelines, there's double timelines, there's alternate timelines. I mean, the stuff we've experienced, they talk about in science fiction. The physicists and mathematicians describe it in the mathematics. We actually have experienced it.
It's just not about that. There's a whole other level.
And I think we've been fixated on that so much I think, the way that they reported things in the 60s, 70s, and 80s was just to dismiss it. And it was always just, oh, I saw lights in the skies. Yeah, but that doesn't describe the emotional effects, psychological effects of all of it, And not only that, but if you're a spiritual person and you wake up one night and something lands in your backyard or does a crop circle or you see little guys running outside, they dismiss that. They dismiss what that must do, shockingly to our system, witnessing this. And you were mentioning about the one-offs. And I always think about that. Like when people have these one-offs, to dismiss it so fast and want to dismiss it so fast because it scares the living crap out of people. And we're only afraid of it because we don't understand it. And that's a natural part of our psyche as humans. Whatever we don't understand, we fear, and we don't understand this phenomenon. But there are beautiful aspects to it that people are not talking about. Terrible aspects to it as well. Let's be serious. But there's also beautiful aspects to it. And, when I hear about that, like, somebody trying to make contact and then the bloody things show up, I'm like, okay, but are they reading your mind, or did they know specifically through time that you'd be asking then? And think about it. They would have to run to their ships and come and show you what they're up to. Or they just can instantly just show you something. It's crazy. But the fact that you had an entire fleet do a demonstration for you was probably to cement and solidify for you we're freaking here, right? And I'm going to use a nice polite Canadian language. I'm not going to swear too much this episode, but to me that's kind of what it relates to. It's just solidifying for you alone that you need to do this. And obviously it affected you to a point, both of you, because it whatever energy you had you gave to Mark to pursue this. And the more people you meet, the more you understand that they're going through the same thing as you and that it is real, because there's no way that all these people randomly scattered across this globe is experiencing the same thing as you are in Ontario, Canada in 1966.
We've decided over the years, you see all that equipment in the background, there's more these days, but we learned to, when we go on an expedition, to only take the equipment out half the time. And it's kind of like they decide when you're going to be allowed to document. I mean, we've got a story when we were with Damien Knott in Australia at the Paradigm Conference, and, he hadn't seen a thermal camera. We had it set up on the balcony. I said, take a look through. Damien looks through the thermal scope and there's a saucer going across, a classic saucer with a dome. And
you got that on film too, guys.
well,
you got that on film. Yeah.
Well, we have what happened on film, except that, and I was recording it, except that when I went to play it back, it was all snow. We had the audio, and I was so upset in the room. I was ready to I'm going to quit. This is ridiculous. I got the best footage ever of a saucer going right over the downtown area in the thermal. No other cameras, not the visible, nothing. And then I had a little epiphany. Like, I was just about to descend into being very depressed when I thought, wait a minute, this is no coincidence. They decided that you were not to record this, and they messed up the video part, not the audio. So we got the whole audio. Mark has the whole background of this happening. We just don't have the video of the craft. But going back to the story, so half of the time we decided we will leave the cameras at home, because they decide when they want you to document or not, and maybe they're going to give you an even better show if you're not going to be documenting. And that's exactly what happened in Bugarach. It was an unbelievable light show. We had gotten there late because our plane was late coming in from Canada. And Mark said, are you going to bring the equipment out? I said, Mark, I have no time to set it up. It takes me, I've got to unpack it all. We'd only just got to the hotel in that little town at what, 11:30 at night, Mark?
It's so late. Like, we didn't get out there till after midnight.
Yeah.
Jet lag probably too, right?
Yeah. And so I said, no, this will be the one of the nights that we leave all the equipment at home. And man, we were not disappointed. The lights started up, moving across the sky over to the mountain. Okay. And it was as if the lights were shining from above the thin cloud and they were using it as a screen. It was unbelievable. We tried filming with our iPhones, nothing. And it's like I left all the equipment at home. So we got a beautiful show for 2 hours. And then finally I said, well, we're going to have to go to bed soon. It's like 2 or 2:30 in the morning finally. And when we said that, within minutes, the show just ended. And it was, the things that were happening, the dancing of all these lights. And the first thing we had said to our host was, is there an airport nearby? She said, no, there's no airport within 100 miles of here. Like, we're out in the middle of the mountains and there's just little mountain towns and that's it. There were no airports, so, and it was just like, many, many searchlights focused and shining from above.
Michael, Rob has an insane setup. And the
It's
fact that
in the background. There's
dude,
like
that is
cameras attached to
nothing.
this.
That is nothing compared to what he has. Like, he's just insane. And he travels the world with this equipment, which must be nerve-wracking because it's super flipping expensive, I'm sure. But it's crazy. And what my question was, because I was thinking about this when you guys were coming on, of all the devices and technology that you bring to the field, which is crazy and way beyond my capabilities or understanding, you're a genius when it comes down to that. But have you sort of formulated, or both of you maybe formulated a theory as to why sometimes the equipment is absolutely no use to us in this documenting of this phenomenon?
Well, I feel that there is a disclosure happening, and if you ask me, whoever they are in charge, not us. In other
Mhm.
words, they're controlling the narrative. They're letting us play our little game, but they only want so much disclosed in such a period of time. And, you know, getting real authentic video, like for example, the saucer in Australia, that's maybe going against where they want to be right now. We have gotten some pretty incredible stuff, but once again, I always feel it's when they want us to get it. So I don't worry about it. I leave the equipment home half the time, and the real special experiences that we've got are usually when the equipment is left at home. Don't get me wrong, we've been able to document stuff like the Squamish Orb, the Cusco Craft, and so on, but we specifically allow half of the time on an expedition where I can disengage with the technology, because it may be more about connecting heart to heart with these beings, with these other extraterrestrials. And, you know, when I'm heavily involved with my equipment, maybe that's more intellectual versus heart to heart. So I actually disengage from the equipment and just literally, you know, we do meditations, all that stuff, and try to connect with our ET friends. And we're not disappointed. Like in Bugarach, that was the most incredible thing we have ever seen in our entire life that night. We went out the next night because we only had the 2 nights there. We went out the next night and got nothing. I had all the equipment. I had all the equipment waiting, but nothing. So, and you know, as Mark says, there's quite a backstory because this is connected to the Steven Spielberg story. So, and all the stories that have been in the newspapers in that area and so on. And we were totally not disappointed that night. I mean, it was incredible what we saw. It just went on and on and on and on. And, you know, there were no rock concerts nearby. You know, the villages were only like, you know, 1,000 or 1,500 people. And there weren't even that many villages. There was
And
no,
this is a mountain, Rob, or is it like because people always mention mountains are huge with UFOs. You guys captured one here at Squamish,
Mhm.
BC, that became very well known with MUFON. Very great video. And then we got the mesas in the States where people are saying these things are flying into the mesas. So you guys have been around rocks and mountains quite a bit, and that seems to be where this activity is taking place.
Yeah, and this was no different. When we had left the hotel, like we literally got there, we're there for 5 minutes just to dump our suitcases off. I didn't even open the equipment. And it's like, let's go. We're super tired, but we've only got 2 nights there. We were supposed to be there that morning, but we got very badly delayed by like 9 hours or 10 hours.
Ooh.
So we only had 2 nights. So we said, we're going to go out, and we were going along the road. It was dark, and our host said she's looking for the spot where we could get the best view of the mountain, but we couldn't see. All we've got is the car lights on the highway. We could not see the mountain. There was no moon. So, and she said, well, we need to find a place where we can see the mountain. When she said that, right at that exact second, I happened to look over and there was a pullout on the left-hand side. Really, what it was is there was another road down there, but it was quite wide because they wanted people turning one way and the other way from the other side of the road. So it was like a big triangular area there. And just when she said that, I immediately saw that and just said, well, this looks like a good spot. Like it was within half a second of her speaking, it appeared the spot. And then when she looked at her map, she said, and you know, when our eyes got accustomed to the darkness and with the stars and so on, we could see the mountain. She said, Rob, this is perfect. This is exactly the spot I wanted. So, and these aren't coincidences. This happens nonstop with us. We're not in control of it. We're just part of it. We just flow with it. And that's the spot where we saw all this stuff happen in the sky, coming from behind us, doing dances and going in a big arc around and into the mountain. So, is it coincidence? We have no idea. But I just know that with the equipment, there it is right there. With the
Oh, that's
equipment,
actually
that's what is that mountain called, Mark? Is that Bugarach?
a higher mountain than I thought it was. Yeah.
That's Bugarach. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you can see Spielberg that he wanted something like that. And then that's why he got the Devil's Tower, which was even more like that. So, on that night, I did not have my equipment. And of course, they said, well, we know you can't record it. Now, one last little story, and we can continue. When we were in Italy, I guess this was 2 years ago now, Mark, when we were up on the lodge on the mountain there. And
2 years, yeah.
we were going to walk up to this spot where many sightings have been. Okay, so we were about to just walk up to it's about maybe 30 minutes walk up to the top of this mountain area where they see a lot of stuff. And I had my phone and I looked at it and it only had like 20%. I knew it was going to take a lot of pictures and video. And I thought, should I go back into the lodge and up to my room and get spare battery to plug it in? And I thought, no, everybody's already walking away. Just go. You got 20%, no problem. So we get up to the top and I get my camera out and I go to take video and photos and my camera's dead. I thought, that's odd. I had 20%. What's going on? And then I made a joke. I said to the ETs, I said, okay, guys, meaning the ETs, I said, you can come out now. You can give me a show. I can't record it anyway. And I was making a joke. I turned my head and there is a saucer in front of the mountain going right across. I saw it with my own eyes. And I said, wouldn't it be funny if my phone comes on again when I get back to the lodge? So, we go back down to the lodge. We're in the little room right at the beginning where you take your boots off. They don't like boots in the room because there's cows running around the mountains and there's cow patties. So they don't want the lodge smelled up with that. So you take your boots off in this special room. So I come into the lodge and keep my phone in my back pocket. So I took my phone out because it's wooden bench. I didn't want to sit on my phone and break it or bend it. I grabbed my phone and I looked at it and I thought, my phone's on again. And again, they turned my camera off and I made the joke. Now they showed up and I was the only one that saw it up on the mountain. Everybody was looking the other way and I couldn't record it. And, down in that little room for changing in the bathroom and so on, nobody had their phone to record what Mark saw. So they gave it to us, but it's like, no, I'm sorry, you can't record. Not this time. Maybe, we'll give you something else in the future.
You guys are so jolly and happy because, I think you got something from that experience. I personally, if I had spent the energy and the traveling and the equipment hauling up mountains that you guys have done and not captured a single, you know what I mean? Like for me, not to capture something when they pop up, I would drive
To
me
get the
crazy.
experience, wouldn't that be like kind of enough that you'd be like, I saw this thing.
I'd be throwing rocks at them. I'd be so mad. Like, look at that equipment, right?
Yeah, that's
So
the
I have a
buggers.
question.
that's
have a
the
question
early
if-
stuff. Go ahead. Yeah.
I can jump in. So I'm a philosopher, and I'm always in the back of my head, sort of theorizing or like trying to come up with a landscape of theories that we might choose from to explain what's going on. And in your case, I feel like we keep slipping between 2 or 3 kind of theories of what's actually going on. And I want to lay them out and see if you think one or more of them is like more right in your way of thinking, or if none of them is. So sometimes it seems like the idea is that there's this phenomenon out here, and it is okay being perceived in some cases, but it's not okay being recorded in all cases. So sometimes when you've got the cameras on, it's like, we're not even going to show up because we don't want you to capture us on the recording. And sometimes they'll even mess with the recording to prevent it from. So that's theory one, is that they're avoiding being measured or recorded in some way. The theory two, though, which we kind of slip into sometimes, is that there's this phenomenon, but it sort of needs you to be engaged with it in a certain way in order for it to manifest. And the recording instruments and cameras and things are like sidetracking you from the sort of mode of engagement and the way of being that is necessary for them to want to come out, or maybe even need to come out. So like the camera is not really what they're avoiding. It's just like it sucks out some sort of mental energy or way of sort of focusing that they need in order to manifest. And then theory three, which we haven't slipped into very often, but I feel like it's kind of hiding in the weeds, and it was at least possible, would be that you are actually the thing that's manifesting these phenomena, and using technology of certain measurement technology is actually just sidetracking you from whatever sort of mode of engagement is required to make these things come out. Which of those, if any, seems like most aligned with the way that you think and experience all this?
Well, I would honestly say, Mike, all three of them fit. All three of them are correct. I really would.
Good
And
answer.
because as you're speaking them, it's like, yeah, theory one, theory two, theory three, for example, we were at what, Hollydale Park there in Los Angeles, Mark? And
Yeah,
yeah, got a little story to share there. So we were filming things in the sky, are they balloons? Because, Los Angeles is many millions of people. There's lots of balloons, party balloons in the sky. Possibly, we don't know. We've got lots of footage of all that stuff. But, we were there, we're in the park, and I had to use the restroom. And without getting too personal or anything like this, I took my
All the details, Rob.
Yeah,
all of them, right?
well, here's
Full
the funny part.
disclosure.
Here's the funny part. I took my camera with me, just my P900 camera, right? And people started making jokes. It's like, Rob, what are you doing? You're taking the camera into the bathroom with you, and like, a pedophile or whatever. And I said, honestly, I just feel that there's going to be something show up, and I don't want to miss it when I come out, right? And I was being honest. I wasn't going to do anything nefarious, and there was nobody in the bathroom either. So, I came out of the bathroom, my camera's in my hand, and I look up in the sky, and there is this red cube sitting there in the sky. And it's like, what? And then I look over at Jasmine. She's one of the girls in our group there. She's sitting on a blanket away from the group with a girlfriend, just talking. And what is she playing with? But a red cube, like a child's, a wooden cube, right? And I quickly look back, I grab my camera, I press the button to turn it on. And of course, it takes a couple seconds. And that camera, the lens has to engage. It comes out because it's a zoom camera, right? So as I turn it on and I raise the camera to get it in focus, just gone, it disappears. So did we manifest that? Did I manifest that? I don't know. Like, red cube in the sky, red cube in her hand, me knowing and saying, I would never take a camera into a bathroom. I would perceive that as creepy. I wouldn't do it, but in this case, I felt deep inside that there was going to be something happen, and I did not want to miss it. In other words, you come out of the bathroom and the group's yelling, Rob, there's something in the sky. I didn't want to miss it. So what happened there? Did I perceive it unconsciously, subconsciously, and therefore was preparing myself? Then when I came out, did Jasmine help me manifest this thing? What was that? So
and what are the chances that you would have noticed that there's also a red cube over here in your field of vision? I mean, it's almost like your mind picked out those things. It was like, you need to notice there's a little connection going on here, but it's totally mysterious. How mysterious.
Yeah. And
what it is? You know what it is, guys? UFOs are like a spouse that's gained a little bit of weight. Every time you take a picture or video, they make you delete it. Wrong angle. I don't
Just
like that one.
embarrassed.
Delete it. Yeah, exactly. But you know, you have to have humor in this, you know, in this field. I find that we don't joke enough about these things. I even start joking about alien abductions because, you know, you got to laugh at it if it's happening. Like we got to create some sort of humor to get through it.
Yeah.
But so here's my part that I always find fascinating because the amount of money that is needed to get there, the amount of troubles. And if anybody's interested, go back and listen to the other episodes we've done with Rob and Mark. But you guys have been through the mud, climbing mountains, hauling that equipment for starters, which must, I don't know, must weigh a ton. But just the frustrations, I'm only assuming, like I said, if I was to travel, you know, 27 hours to get to a location and I don't capture anything on that equipment, I would be mad. But for some reason, you guys are like, no, this is a positive way because scientifically you're almost analyzing it to the point of like the devices are as fancy as they are, as needed as they
Yeah. And
are not the same as us. We interact with the
yeah.
phenomenon. Our equipment does not.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like the one that Mark is showing in the screen, that's a very early version. You see how messy it is with all the wires, you know, it's quite refined today, but it's true. You know, the technology is like a wall between us and them. And I think it's true that you know, they need you to be in more of a heart space. They need you to be, you might say, in your right brain versus the left intellectual side. And when you don't have the equipment, then it seems you can connect with them. The equipment, as much as I will disengage with it, you know, when you are engaged with it, I'm quite focused on making sure everything's working right. I mean, I've got like 7 cameras recording and I've got to make sure everything's just perfect. So maybe they are saying, well, Rob, you know, it's like a jealous spouse. Like, who do you love? You know, me or the equipment? So it was very tough in the beginning couple of years to walk away from the equipment. But it's, you
Yeah.
know, it's like the police officer, like, walk away from the vehicle, sir, step out of the vehicle, right? And I've learned how to do that. And I haven't been disappointed. Um, Even though there's been expeditions that we haven't captured anything, we certainly have captured experiences. And Marcus and I have always said, number one, it's the experience. Okay. Number two, if we can document it for the world and share through Mark's abilities with filmmaking and so on, and now book writing, and get it out to everybody, we always say, at least if we experience it, then we always have each other so that there is a second witness. And that's a good thing. It keeps us sane because, you know, how many people have something crazy and just nobody believes them? They're afraid to tell people. I've never been afraid to tell people because of that, you know, original story. You know, my mom didn't believe me at first, but then she was the one that validated me with the newspaper, right? So ever since getting validated by the newspaper, the Sarnia Observer, I've never been afraid to tell people. And it's like, if they start going down a thing of making fun of me, or I'm like, well, you know, honestly, I don't care. I know what I've experienced. It was in the paper. 200 other people saw it. You know, why are you even going down that road? Like, it's not important to me. And it's not important to Mark either, because he knows with me what we've experienced. So we feel that as long as we experience it, we can disseminate those stories. We can always go back, you know, home, put up the green screen. We can talk, tell our stories, and, you know, put the B-roll on the green screen behind to go with the story. So it's always most important to have the experience. And that's why anybody that, you know, is not sure about this, go out and get an experience with it. Go out in the field, go out with other experiencers, keep an open mind. All you need to do is have your mind open a crack. That's all it takes. And just say, maybe, you know, reserve your judgment, say, maybe it's possible. And believe me, when you go out with other people who've had experiences, it gets multiplied when you add more people in. And once you've had experiences, that's it. You've been bitten by the bug and you know what's real, obviously.
So do you guys have like a protocol that you follow when you're going out and doing these things?
We just get very relaxed. I mean, we don't have a formal protocol. We know all the protocols that different groups use, and we've gone along with them when we're in the group. We've learned them all. But really, for us, it's more same thing as when I was a little boy, young man. It's really intention and keeping an open mind and being
So
innocent and being just open to what might happen. That's it.
so much of this reminds me of, or makes me think of like Zen philosophy and meditation, and certain like things that we know about happiness. It's like meditating is about stopping trying to do something, right? And in Zen philosophy, there's this concept of Wu Wei, which is like effortless action, which is like a sort of mode of being where you're performing excellently at something very skillfully, precisely because you've forgotten to even try to do it, right? And it's hard to get there. I mean, happiness is sort of like that. The harder you try to be happy, the more miserable you are. Happiness. I have. I'm trying to promote this saying I have, where happiness comes to you like a stray cat, right? You try to pursue it and it'll run away. It only comes to you when you forget it's even there and you're doing something on the side, and then it kind of creeps up to you and it's present. It seems like there's some aspect of this phenomenon in the way that you're experiencing it that's very similar. It's like if you go out and you're mentally focusing and trying to manifest this thing and concentrating on it perfectly and got your cameras out, it's never going to happen. But if you're out there and you're open to it and you're sort of relaxed and in your element and not trying but allowing it, then it'll come. So I've wondered, like, are there ways of optimizing your technological setup so that it won't get in the way so much of that kind of mode of being? I mean, I see you got this platform with all these cameras and stuff on it. Like, are there ways of tweaking it so that it would just be less kind of, it would call your attention to it less, but you could still set it up and let it do its thing?
Yeah, what I've evolved to is there's two sets of cameras. There's actually, a more advanced one of the one you see there. That's on Easter Island about what, 5 years ago, Mark, something like that. And but there's two versions. There's that we call it the WMD, weapon of mass detection or weapon of mass debunction. And then there's a set of two cameras that one's infrared and the other is visible, and they're just set on time lapse. They're just sitting pointed at one area of the sky. Usually we include the foreground, and up into the sky, they're more wide angle. And they're on time lapse that they take a shot every 30 seconds, like holding the lens open for 30 seconds, the shutter. And we capture a lot of stuff with that, because there will be a lot of things that are just slowly moving through the sky at night that doesn't catch your eye, but you'll see it in the time lapse, and stuff that's only been seen in infrared. It's not even in the visible cameras, lots of stuff like that. And then you have the big WMD, which that's the one that takes a lot of attention. The one that's the fixed set of cameras, I just hit the shutters, turn them on, let them run all night, 8 hours, whatever. The other one, I've learned to just set it and leave the cameras running. Like in the case of the Squamish orb, the cameras were turned on, but the video was not recording. And it was only when we saw that light, that yellowish big light, that I ran over, hit the one record on the night vision zoom and caught it. And I thought, do I turn my other cameras in and record? And I didn't want to look away. I thought the second I look away from the screen to hit the other buttons, I'm toast. And I knew it was about to go into the woods. So I only was able to get it for 10 seconds. So that's where I learned that these days, just let the equipment run. In other words, set all the videos, they're running, period. And set it somewhere and then just walk away and let go, forget about the cameras, do meditations or whatever. And if something should be spotted by somebody, okay, run over there and get it in the camera, but try to disengage, keep your mind off the cameras. And that seems to be a better way to operate with this whole idea of getting involved with technology. Technology is artificial. I think whatever this phenomenon is, they want to connect with humans and they want the humans to connect with them. I mean, are these really people or ETs that are really part of our star brothers? Like, I mean, you know, our defense minister, Paul Hellyer, he said that all the beings of the Milky Way galaxy look very similar to us, so that it's the same seed, same original seed. So, you know, in many ways, these nearby ETs are our lost brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers. We're related to them. That's what he says. And, you know, he was our defense minister and he was privy to all these secrets, you know, and he said, once you get into other galaxies away from the Milky Way galaxy, then that's where you get into these other beings that look different from us. But he said all the beings of the Milky Way galaxy, if there was one of them walking down the street downtown, you would walk right by him. Could you be a friend, a cousin, anybody? They really don't look any different than us. Yeah, because the average person cannot get out there and go around the world and experience this. So we're trying to bring it to them. We're going out around everywhere and just as normal people, meeting a lot of special people and documenting it and then getting it to them. A lot of people just can't do this. Most cannot do this. So we're doing it for them. We're going out there and bringing these experiences right to them.
And this is exactly, you know, Michael, what this is all about. It's teamwork to make the dream work. And I cannot stress that enough. I know that people are probably tired of hearing it, but it literally is that way. There's no, you know, we see it all the time. You guys know who I'm talking about. There's plenty of people out there who drink their own Kool-Aid and think that somehow they're the answer to all of this, which of course is absolutely ridiculous and absolute buffoonery as far as I'm concerned. There's no one person that's going to nail all of this down. It's going to require the entire planet to put our efforts in A game. And actually, I was talking to Mark right before we started, and I want to ask all four or all three of you, not four, I'm not including myself, all three of you, just about Canada being so far behind on this, but Canada keeps popping up in the American news because it turns out that, you know, Daniel Otis, a great, you know, journalistic investigator in Canada, is releasing some of these things that he's found that actually Canada's working with the state's intel and releasing everything we know. Christy Newton did a similar thing with Larry Maguire. So we have Canada saying, nah, we're not really getting involved, but actually behind the scenes, Canada is helping out the states in every shape, way, or form. We're just keeping quiet about that. So actually, Michael, let's start with you. Do you have any idea on what, you know, what approach should Canada take, or how are we dealing with this going forward, being UFO investigators in Canada? You being American, of course, but I'm just curious about your perspective.
Sure. I mean, my sense is that if the Canadian, to whatever extent the Canadian government military are invested in researching this subject, they're simply not subject to the same degree of like public scrutiny as the US is. So it probably is a lot more room for possibility that the Canadian government is deeply involved in this, and they just don't have to talk about it because everybody's attention is always on the, you know, whatever America is doing wrong or weird. So I don't know if you actually are behind us. I think it would probably be in Canada's strategic best interest to seem like they were behind America. So I'm kind of skeptical, or at least agnostic, about what the case is. But when it comes to like public researchers, yeah, I mean, everybody, Canadian or American, needs to like unify and, you know, come up with like agreed upon research methods and sharing, you know, protocols for like what information we'll give to each other and how we're going to do it and make repositories and things. I mean, I know you've got MUFON up there, and is CUFOS up in Canada also?
Not sure.
No, Quebec has its own one, I think, guys,
Okay.
right? Like it's got its
Or
own
Quebec
variation
has
of it.
its
Yeah.
own. Yeah, yeah, but I think it's the public level, there doesn't really need to be any national division, but when it comes to the government level, I don't know, have no clue what they're doing out there.
Well, it's kind of like we're like the elephant or we're like the fly on the elephant's back, the states being the elephant. And you could consider it's like the states is like this black hole.
Hmm.
All the information that exists is getting sucked in there and it's disappearing, right? But there's so much information right next door to us. It's kind of like maybe a lot of the people in Canada, even the government thinks, well, what have we got to add in Canada? So we don't really get involved in that too much. We just are out on our own going around the world, and whatever we can put together and assemble and publish, we're just doing our own thing. And we're telling the truth because, we did have the opportunity to go with a network, and we were about to sign the contract. It would have been a nice lucrative deal, but they wanted the scary factor. They wanted the negative fear factor. And Mark and I looked at each other and we said, no. And we told them that. We said, we have to be authentic. And they were very polite and gracious and they backed away from us. And so, we don't want to be influenced by anybody. We are pure in the fact that, it's self-funding and we don't have to answer to anybody and, change the narrative to fit who's funding you. So that's the part that we like about it. And we're from Canada. So you might say on behalf of Canada, that's what we're doing and adding into the mix. And we hope that, there's some unique sides to this, and especially through the interviews of people we meet telling their stories, especially with the experiences we have and their authentic experiences. And, I did joke and say that the WMD is just as much a weapon of mass debunction. And unfortunately it is. We do find that, there's a lot of stuff up there that when you've got this level of equipment, you can then discern that it is a satellite, it is a plane, it is
Sure, yeah.
Something natural. And because there's a lot of stuff that people will pass off as UFOs, which really isn't. And we're not interested in pushing a narrative of, oh, we got all this fancy footage, but really it's just mundane stuff that's natural. And, the experts are going to debunk it anyway. So we try to debunk it ourselves. And therefore, when we do get something, it's more few and far between, it is authentic.
And the
And
thing
from
is,
Canada, that's what we're adding to the Canada point of view, I guess.
yeah, and you guys are contributing big time to Canadian ufology. And the reason is, got Sky Canada project now, but are they out in the field? Are they doing the level of work that you guys are doing? Or are they just collecting things that are coming on from the internet? Because that, even when I sometimes I feel lazy because all I do is do the podcast. I'm not out there like the way you guys are. So I live vicariously through you. But when I hear an organization saying, look, we're going to look like, Arrow, big disappointment in that organization, and Sean Kirkpatrick for that reason. But, they'll come out, they'll throw a bunch of money at it. And all they do is they sit at their computer collecting data. J. Allen Hynek actually went to the locations and talked to people and would investigate the grounds. And I think that is the biggest problem in our field today, is that we give credibility to people that don't do that research. They just jump on whatever the bandwagon is of, if it's popular on Twitter, I'll jump on it and I'll cover it because I want your attention. I want you to focus on it. Problem with that is that your work goes down the toilet, your reputation goes down the toilet, and you're just sensationalism. And we have a lot of sensationalism within ufology, unfortunately. It's like rock stars of ufology, and people are like, trust me, I'm the only one who knows, or pay me $5,000 to come and look at satellites in my backyard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. And, when I meet guys like yourselves that are just genuinely, and my brother from another mother, Michael here, but are just genuinely interested and honest in your approach, your humbleness to it, that really reflects, what I want to do as well. It's just no egos, like I have biases. I'm aware that I'm biased, but be aware that I have biases to fight that, to change my mind. Like the mind can change. We're not fixated on our opinions of, I could be different on my opinion 5 minutes from now than I am right now. There's nothing stopping us, but our egos are like, no, I've always said that they are extraterrestrial. They're not interdimensional. I will not hear of it. That's just ridiculous. Look, every possibility in theories that we have is ridiculous. And the fact that we don't know just means we can't state absolutes, which unfortunately in our field, there's so many people stating absolutes like this is it, this isn't it. I know you guys are all idiots. I'm the only one who knows anything about everything. You know what I mean? Like that reputation that people are building around this. It's not teamwork, which to me that is that hey, the states and Canada are working together, obviously teaming up, so we should too. And that's the beautiful thing about what's happening right now is people are able to find you guys more accessibly than ever before because of technology, because of podcasts, and because of what you guys do. And we're going to let you promote the book here. I just want to let you both know that I'm absolutely proud to be your friend and to have you guys come on and share these experiences with me because it's near and dear to my heart. You guys have been there with me from the start, always encouraging, the nicest words, Michael. These guys send me the nicest messages.
I can tell you guys really are.
Just genuine. Canadians rock. These guys really are the people that, this podcast is based around. And it's not just the big names, it's the smaller names, but it's the people that are active, that are actually contributing. Yesterday, by the way, Grant Pfeiffer, I think is his name. But Grant, I met Grant yesterday at a coffee shop. It was his 60th anniversary, and his daughter had reached out to me to surprise him for his birthday. And I sat down with him for an hour. I gave him some artwork. We talked UAPs. It was awesome. And, I got to meet the first listener I've ever that lives in Vancouver and never knew anybody in my region that listened to the podcast. That was so cool. And even hearing his motivation, his experiencing and be able to find maybe solace in what ufology is now and what people are saying. And there's so many people out there like us that are the same mindset. And it doesn't matter whether you deliver boxes in London at 1 o'clock in the morning for a living, or you work at the DOD, which we found out we have a lot of people in the Defense Department, NASA, and Space Force that listen to us, that makes me scared. But it doesn't matter where you are and who you are. This phenomenon affects us all individually on a personal level, far beyond what a government can do to control it. There's nothing we can bank on to protect us from this phenomenon. I know a lot of people try to, if there's an out given, they'll take the out because the idea to actually focus any mental energy on this scares the living daylights out of them. And I understand that. But I think there's a social consciousness that we're all becoming more open to talk about it, more open, documentary films and all that are doing really, really good right now. Podcasts are doing really good right now. So there's a thirst for this. I think there's enough people out there that are just fed up with the lies and the gaslighting. We know it's there. It's within reach. We just need to focus and work as a group. And you two gentlemen would win medals. If I could hand out medals for UAP Studies podcast, you would win.
Love to have you back. This was fantastic.
Just
I'd like to take
absolutely legendary, guys.
Take
Yeah.
a chance, Jason. I have to thank you. I have to thank you as well, Mike. Jason, it is an honor to be on your podcast because it's been 4 years. We have been friends for a very long time. Rob and I always have just think very high regard of you and what you've done, how you've grown everything. So it was like when we knew that we were doing all these different things, the first thing we said was, get a hold of Jason.
No, it means a lot. It means a lot.
Yeah,
I appreciate it that very much because it means something to me for sure. And all the connections that I've made with everybody, it means something to me. And I try to be as genuine as I can. Michael knows who I am. I'm the same off the camera as I am on the camera. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, but this is where my passion lies in life, is this subject. And being with you fine gentlemen today has made my day very, very good. Guys, thank you so much. We're probably going to have maybe one more interview before I head out to Contact in the Desert. But I wanted to let everybody know to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you haven't done so yet, you should. Why? Because all our newest contents gets dropped off, and it also teaches the algorithm that we're pretty freaking awesome, and other people should pay attention as well as you. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much, Mark and Rob. Michael, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks for being here, guys. This was great.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having us,
Jason.
Mike and Jason. Thank you so much.
Do it again.